So there were 6 public comments. They were provided to the board, and we will detail those more at the regular meeting at start time at 7 o'clock. Yes, I will yield it to Mr. Pangrazio and Mrs. Williams.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we're going to share tonight, as we always do annually, our target reserve levels for the previous year, so for 2019-2020, and we're going to co-present that information tonight. You have the packet there with target reserves to be able to have in your hands, and so you can look at it slide by slide, and then there's also some documents that break down the reserve ending balances as well. And overall, our reserves are in a good position. So that's the overall picture, and we'll go into the details. In some places, we have higher reserves than we typically would, but there's specific reasons for that. Mostly the COVID shutdown from the spring, and that's also a good place for us to be as a district going into, obviously, in a recession already, and most likely worsening conditions going forward. I will also point out that the ADA input error that we had discussed in previous weeks did falsely raise revenues for a period of time, although falsely, they were never true numbers. But that obviously all those corrections now are reflected here, so you have accurate numbers in terms of the reserve levels. And then can we play this slide so that, okay, they should be able to show up on your screen, right? Huh? There we go. And then, so as I said, annually we look at this, and this is also referring back to Board Policy 3100. So if there's ever any changes, we will recommend that at this time usually. And we do have one recommendation tonight, which we'll get to in the later slide. It's also good practice, obviously, to come to this at this point every year and have a picture of where the district reserves are, and just to be on the same page with that moving forward. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to jump in.
All right, so I'm going to take over. These are the unaudited ending balances. These date back to 2014, 2015. The 2019-20 ending balance is $39,385,750, and you can see it right there in bold. This is now the accurate ending balance. As Dan said, the ADA falsely increased this number to over $43 million, but has now been corrected, and that is the current number.
And I would just add that a portion of that increase that you can see there is, as you'll see when we break it down, as related to the COVID shutdown and just increased revenue, the increased reserves that come out the other side of that, as you have multiple months where you're in shutdown as a district.
Okay, so reserve for the economic uncertainties. This includes the general education and lottery. We like to keep it between 8 to 10% annually. You can also see this number on line 26F of the reserve trends for the CUSD form. I believe it's highlighted. It ended in 10.6%, which is a little higher than normal, but this is mainly because of the COVID shutdown and reduced expenses. We also had a reduced encroachment for special ed that related to the COVID shutdown, so this all ties together. And then the next slide is just doing a breakdown of the combined reserves for general and lottery. In January, we should have a better idea of where we're going to be when the state budget's released. Lottery reserve is usually about 1 year's worth of revenue. The total ending balance in general was $16,999,659 and $2,148,126 in lottery.
Okay, and for the LCAP reserve, usually we are targeting 5 to 10% reserve, but as you can see at over 5.5 million ending balance, we're at over a little bit over 15% reserve in LCAP, but that difference is because of the reduced spending from closure, and so that accounts for that difference. And also, in some cases, we also received the federal stimulus money as well, which there's a lot of spending coming out of that. But as of the original shutdown, there's a lot of reduced expenditures that occur during that time. And so that's what accounts for this. If that hadn't happened, I would imagine we would have landed in a very similar place, in 9.5%, like we usually would, possibly 10%. But that's why it's at 15%. And I think it's really important to point out that as we go into the future, we're going to be talking about multiple year plans to mitigate learning loss in this school district. And so being at this place at this time with that reserve is going to be important as we go forward. And we do talk about at this point really a multi-year plan. And so expenditures that could go on for 1, 2, 3 years and then sunset after the mitigation plan ends, we would imagine that those funds would one time be able to take us through those 3 years, and then they would hopefully sunset after that with mitigating a lot of the learning loss, and then get back to our regular reserve trends. So what I'm talking about in terms of future plans, we've had very early conversations that we see a multiple year plan coming once we really get through the learning mitigation we're doing now in the district, and then we're through the other side of this. At that point, what are all the additional things that we think from everything we've learned that we can do as a district to mitigate learning loss over a multiple year period, which what we think is really the most realistic way that school districts are going to have to look at helping students after this period of time, is looking at it as a multiple year process of helping students to recover any lost learning. And so that's really as far as those conversations have gone. I think all the lessons that we continue to learn, we're going to be part of that process and collaboratively coming up with all stakeholders with what that plan would look like.
So once these COVID times are over, we'll have our spending will return to a more normal level in these programs. And then we'll, on top of that, have to do extra after-school programs, extra intervention teachers possibly, extra tutoring, whatever it might be. And these dollars will come in very, very handy at that time, because the federal dollars will be long gone. At least 2 or 3 years, realistically, at least. And that's just reality. I mean, our kids are going to lose probably in the neighborhood of half a year, give or take, of learning by the time this is all said and done, between last spring and what's happening now.
Some of them,
right, Amy?
some of them we have for hours, years, right?
Sorry, Betty, that didn't come through real well. Can you say it again?
Some of the students will have for 12 more years. 12 years.
Yeah, it could take as much as 12 years, I think is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's just to add to that is that part of that story of what we do to help kids is going to be about marshaling the staff and resources that we already have embedded in our LCAP and all the processes. So it's not all about just all brand new things or new actions, but it's about new things that you need to do, which could cost additional funds, but then also utilizing the staff and resources you have to target the needs that students have. So it's really about the whole picture of the great things we are usually doing and things we have in our plans, but then also what new things do we have to do as a district.
I'd also expect the ending balance here in the coming year to continue to increase, because we're not going to spend all the money we normally spend. There's things not happening because of the shutdowns that can't happen. And the federal dollars are being used in places where these dollars might have been used.
Okay, so moving on, we're to the MA reserve here, and we have a little bit over $1 million in reserve, which is higher at this point than the target. But again, that's not a bad position to be in a recession and going further into a recession. And this is used for technology assistance as well, and there could be other expenditures from there. But I think this is in a good place. And this is also unrestricted dollars, so that we could also call upon that as we go forward if need be.
Great. So moving on to mandated costs. The balance is right on target at $1,019,639. We continue to transfer the excess to Fund 40, and we also still use these funds for program stabilization.
Okay, so equipment replacement reserve, actually in an upcoming board meeting, you will see the plan, which is to replace basic equipment that we have in the district. It could be new vehicles that we need in the district. It could be new carpet cleaners. Think of it as just generally replacing the equipment that ages that we need to upkeep our schools and all of our facilities. And so we always plan to have a target of $400,000 in reserve there, and then each year we have a budget of $200,000 to spend, which usually allows us to make the replacements of equipment that we need. And then, so as you can see, we ended at 423 plus thousand, which is a good place to be at. That's where we want to be, and you'll see in an upcoming board meeting the plan we have for this year. So you'll see how we ended at 423 and what we spent in 1920, and then what we plan to spend and what we need to do in terms of equipment replacement in this school year, and how that will spend the 200,000 that we always put there to spend in any given school year. So that reserve is in a good place. Yeah, we can certainly note that.
Right, so when the time comes, we're putting together a mitigation plan for learning loss. We'll see if we feel like we don't have enough money, we'll have to find money somewhere else. That is a place you could go. There are other places you could go as well. And we'll have to see, as a district, it won't be me, but you'll have to see where the recession is taking us to, where money is. And maybe we come through just fine. And moving forward, we have plenty of money to do it. You don't need to make any of these find money anywhere else. Or maybe that you're scraping for money. Right. You also have like the mom money. If it's not that extra $500,000 that's there, if it's not used up getting through the recession, then it could be used as well. So you'll have to make decisions as a board at that time.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, when you're speaking, you've got to turn your mic on. She's not hearing you, so yeah, turn that mic.
I'm not hearing.
Yeah, you can hear me, correct?
I hear stop.
Yes. So we just had to make sure that we turn our mics on when we're talking. And that's true during the regular meeting too, because the audience won't be able to hear it all as well.
Okay, opening of schools reserve. There is a healthy balance here. However, we did move $100,000 at revision 1 in 2021 right now, actually. And this new resource that we're using to move the $100,000 in will be used for insurance deductibles rather than having the general fund paying for them directly. The deductible is now $25,000 where it used to be much lower, and this will give us some cushion for multiple deductibles.
So what we're looking at doing is setting up a new reserve for insurance deductibles. A year ago, CUSD raised our deductibles significantly in an effort to save premiums because of insurance costs are rising very sharply in California because of fires and other issues. So a $25,000 deductible, if there's 4 incidences in the year, you got to come up with $100,000. So we figured if we put that aside, we normally budget about $50,000 for deductibles. That will cover us for up to 2 full incidences. If there's more, we have a reserve to go to, and then we have to replenish it. So it kind of gives us a cushion. It's really different dealing with a $25,000 deductible as opposed to a $2,000 deductible, which was what it used to be.
Yeah, so we, in the future, we will go and add this to the board policy 3100, as we did with the furniture resource that we added a couple of years ago, and also the technology, additional technology reserve.
Instructional materials. Resource 0617 is for instructional materials, and we ended with $6,382,994, which has a really good mix of base and targeted funds. It's about 50-50. The base being $3,019,329, and the targeted being $3,363,665. Sorry, I've been reading these numbers all day. 6,300 is the restricted lottery for instructional materials adoptions. It's fine that this is spent down because we can carry over reserves in 0617. We are going to have the math adoption in 2122, which will be a large expense.
Right, and the language arts follows right after it. There's a whole bunch of adoptions coming. And we won't have to worry about where to find the money because it's sitting here.
Okay, so now we're to maintenance here at 8150, and so in this fund we have a target of 1 to 2 million, but right now we have over 4.6 million in that in maintenance, and so we have a couple of $1 million there to be able to spend down, and the reason why that is higher, that much higher than our target, is because we shut down any spending out of there that wasn't absolutely necessary as of really March. And so if you stop that spending and stop any larger projects that you may be doing, then that's where you can get increased reserve pretty quickly. Because as you know, in past years, we would end up having a reserve that was maybe over 2 million just because one project didn't get completed on the same timeline we thought, or it actually hit in July instead of June. And so that's why this is at that level. There is the possibility of the state offering flexibility with these dollars. Which could be beneficial in the future, but to this point they haven't. But that's another piece of the puzzle that we have to keep in mind. And then also our plan right now for some of those excess dollars beyond the 2 million actually relates to a couple of the construction projects that you know of and or will hear of tonight. And so part of the plan here would be to use some of this money to fund part of the district's portion, and it could be a large part of the district portion, for the Ceres High School Small Gym Girls Locker Room project. And that would actually allow us to use those funds rather than using the full amount of the remaining bond funds for that project. You can use these dollars on modernization projects, not on new construction. So in this case, we could use those dollars, which would leave us enough, it looks like, remaining in the bond fund from Measure U to then be able to do the next phase, phase 2 of the Carol Fowler modernization, which is approved under the scope from the Bond Oversight Committee of the Measure U bond dollars. And so by doing that, we're getting 2 projects under the remaining bond dollars instead of just the 1. And so that's the working plan that we have now for that.
Special reserve, this is Fund 17. We're just basically keeping this fund open. However, it does count towards our reserve. And special reserve for OPEB, it's other post-employment benefits. This is the cost of benefits we should be reserving for future retirees up to the age of 65. Our total OPEB liability is many times the annual payment amount, but we cover it in a pay-as-you-go model for roughly $600,000 annually. Fund 20 does not count toward our reserves.
It's comforting to know that that money is there for retirees.
Okay, then we have Fund 40, and this is a special reserve for capital outlay projects. These dollars are earmarked for future capital projects. The Performing Arts Center construction at this point, that project has been paused due to just the overall uncertainty regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, and then also following from that uncertainty around what the recession will look like, and which there's lots of unknowns right now in terms of how bad this recession really will be, which we'll know more about hopefully with the governor's budget proposal in January. That would be one of the next obviously big data points, but there's, as you know, there's many unknowns out there in terms of what that will look like and what potential aid will come from the federal government or not. And so all those pieces are in play, but that's why we've paused on that project, which would be a high percentage. We wouldn't have a cost at this point, but a high percentage amount of that dollar figure there.
I have a question, Dan.
You turn your mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, good.
So we had probably had energy savings while we were shut down. Has that been discussed at all? And what fund might that come out of? And
So the energy savings would end up in the unrestricted, that 000 balance that we initially saw at the very beginning. It just fell out as dollars that weren't spent.
oh, okay.
So it's
I imagine that's pretty significant.
part of the whole reason why
Save money
reserves swelled at the end of the year.
And Brian Turner, our energy program manager, will be able to show that when he presents later on in the year. He'll be able to show the data of where we saved on energy during that time.
I always remember where that started and where it's at today. It's amazing.
Okay, and then redevelopment dollars. We have nearly $2 million in that fund as well, and that's part of the overall Fund 40 balance that you saw previously. And again, that is higher now than it usually would be, as it's grown as part of the overall Fund 40 amount earmarked for capital projects. We've slowed down on, as you know, on the pace that we were building the shade structures, and so that's part of the story as well here. But we are proceeding with La Rosa coming up, and then we will continue to work, if we're able to, continue to build more shade structures, just at a slower pace for a period of time than we originally planned, which makes sense just based on the recession that we're in and facing the next few years. Yeah, and then we have the reserve for technology replacement. Right now, the $300,000 is there, and we're just leaving it there at this point. A lot of the technology that we're purchasing has to do with the closure and with distance learning. So the technology tools, wireless hotspots, all of that's coming out of either the CARES money mostly, and then also the funding that the technology department just has allotted from the district anyway. And so I think it's appropriate just to leave this funding here for now, mainly because when we have future technology upgrades and the CARES money is no longer there, there's going to come times where we need to upgrade networks, upgrade wireless further, and when you do those projects, they're expensive. So I mean, that $300,000 right there would not go very far. I mean, that wouldn't probably even come close to replacing the main network equipment that we have, or maybe even the cooling system that keeps them from overheating, frankly. So this is just the beginning of what you would need to build up for larger projects down the road. But for now, we're using the CARES money where we can from the federal government. And then really we paused on the spending because we actually aggressively, if you remember, seems like a long time ago now, but the furniture we did, cafeteria tables at several schools, 8 classrooms of furniture at multiple schools that really had the oldest furniture. We were making nice progress with that, and then we hit March, and at this point we had spent it down to 70,000, and it's then right now we've paused. As we have with a lot of other things, and then we can kind of see what can we tackle next. Just one new set of cafeteria tables is close to $35,000. So we know the next schools that we that need it, and we just have to decide when are we ready to make those next expenditures.
The reason to hold on any of those kind of expenditures right now is that we don't know how desperate the situation will be in the coming year or two. So we want to be a little conservative about holding on to money. Once we see our way through to the end, then some of this money will start getting spent again.
Have we replaced all the old classroom furniture? I remember that conversation.
Replace
We still have some schools with old furniture in the classroom.
Yeah, with what we did in the last couple of years, we tackled really what we saw as the situations that had the oldest furniture, and it was typically your older schools where over the years you had mixed matched classrooms, which we talked about of different age furnitures, but pretty much all of them at certain schools were the oldest, the oldest sets. So replacing those, I think, really dealt with the ones we needed to tackle first. But there's more to do. They're functional, but they're older, and you might still have unmatched sets. That's really what's still out there. And so when we can, I think we just keep working on that. That way you're tackling those over the years, not having to, let's say, spend a lot of funds to do it all at once. That would be really, really difficult. Not really possible.
And remember, every year, every piece of furniture in the district is a year older.
Like us.
Yes, like us. Time doesn't stop. Although right now time does feel like it's stopped in a way, but COVID.
So we're getting close to concluding here, and we always reflect back on did we meet the requirement for 12% reserve, which would be a total of unrestricted and restricted general fund reserves. And really, the 12% would be an absolute minimum. Over the years, we've seen that really 16 and 2/3%, 17% is really the appropriate kind of operational percentage to be at. And right now, at this point, again, given the conversation that we've had, you can see why we are at 21.9. For all reserves, that's including restricted reserves as well. And so we do have, as a district, a healthy reserve with all reserves together. And we're at 12.4% unrestricted reserves. And again, which is a little bit higher than where we would usually be by maybe a couple percentage points. You might remember in a typical year, we would end at 9.6, 9.8, maybe 10.1. That's what you see on the historical charts. And right now we're at 12.4. But if you go back to all these slides and you put together all the places where we've got a higher reserve really relative to, in almost all cases, the shutdown, that's what gives you the couple percentage point higher reserve, which we're going to need moving deeper into the recession.
And we generally like to have the total reserves in a normal situation not run much higher than 16, 17%, which represents 2 months of spending. But right now, they're at 21% overall, and that's okay because what's coming. So we're feeling like we're in good position to handle what the economy is going to throw at us.
So any questions for us? Any other questions?
This last slide that you have on the 100,000 set aside for insurance, did I miss it? Does it include the opening of schools?
Yes, that's where it's coming out of.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not like we have to find 100,000 new money. We don't need the opening of schools right now. We're not opening schools, so we're just moving 100,000 out of that and putting it in this new one.
Correct. Okay.
Great, thank you very much. So we go on to 2, which is adjourn to closed session.
and we will get dinner. And so if we can stop recording. And
Church wall is pretty good, and I got 6 people care, I got 4 or 5
Until the next quarter. So like tomorrow, night,
there's
go on to the district website,
really difficult.
go into the board members page, and there's a link on the.
I got one.
So do you think like
I don't know.
the idea of broadcasting the meetings will stay like a common? I think once we get completely out of COVID, we'll have.
He just literally
It's
has-
only because of that we do this. Yeah. Because the public, that's how the public.
Sit there, no one at home, older system.
And then so like they have to.
Like a lot.
Lost year.
So normally what would happen is if I had a.
That's why I mean,
Go out of
did
the
like
paper,
make
like instead of the podium,
There's some of
to
these.
say it, but now with the.
And then we didn't do unity
No.
Did we get invited?
Yeah.
I didn't.
I'm sorry, I didn't see, we didn't have.
Actually, it was paused and just started. Okay, we are now live and recording.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, okay, we're gonna go to item B, which is public comments. I believe we had some public comments that the board was aware of. So,
Yes, we have one public comment that is a non-agenda item from a Jacob Pickering, so that is, the board has received that and had an opportunity to read it. We have 4 public comments from Rosa Hernandez, Grace Cabral, Raquel Hatfield, and Serena Mendoza for item 10E, and we'll have those there for you, and you've had a chance to read those. And then one public comment from Skylar Nazario on item 10G. And those have been entered into the record, and the board has received those.
thank you. So moving to 5, which is the commendation section. Tonight we have recognition of new employees to Ceres Unified School District. Please.
Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight, we are attempting to do this a little bit differently. We like to introduce the new employees that we have hired for the new school year. It is a celebration. These are new employees that we are welcoming to the Ceres Unified School District, and they've been thoroughly vetted and had to go through quite the rigorous process in order to join our team. Due to the circumstances, we were not able to invite the new employees to come and meet you tonight, but I do believe many of them are live streaming with us tonight, and their administrators are going to attempt to record their little section of where they will be introduced to you. And so that you can still see their faces, we have created a slide deck so that we have a picture of each of the new employees for you tonight. We have 81 new employees to introduce to you, and I am going to just get started with starting with our new employees from Carol Fowler Elementary School. I'm hoping, am I supposed to, oh, yay. Okay, magically, here are the Carol Fowler new employees. I introduce to you Gianna Giles, a 1st grade teacher, Gurpreet Kaur, a 4th grade teacher, Andres Ruiz, a 5th grade teacher, and Tiana Cisneros D'Angelo, a 5th grade teacher. So welcome, teachers, to Carol Fowler.
Welcome.
Next, we have Caswell Elementary School. We have Getzi Esparza, 2nd grade teacher. Alex Santana, the night custodian. He's also split with me, Hensley. And then we have Crystal Archuleta Cole, resource specialist.
Okay, we only have one new employee at Don Pedro this year, and this is a kindergarten teacher named Kayla Rosas.
For Hydal Elementary School, we have Eleanor Snyder, Achel Nadan, Marissa Lopes, and Elizabeth Mitchell.
We have one new teacher at La Rosa Elementary. Her name is Jennifer Lorenko.
For Lucas Elementary School, Ivan Orta, Sarah Silvera, Ricardo Mota.
At Virginia Parks, we have 3 new employees. Dana Olmstead, a 5th grade teacher, Andrea Andrade, a student support assistant, and Samantha Allen, a 2nd grade teacher.
Walter White Elementary School, we have 7 total new teachers. Jessica Velasquez, Kathy Jackson, Robin Rodriguez, Heba Morad.
And I will finish the final 3, Angelica Gomes, 5th grade, Cecilia Hernandez, 5th grade, and Sierra Bareilles, a 5th grade teacher.
Westport Elementary School, 1 new teacher, Marisol Humphrey, 5th grade.
Patricia K. Beaver, we have 1 new teacher, Melissa Gonzalez.
Baker Kinzer, 1 new employee, Emmanuel Wiseman, a student supervision assistant.
Cesar Chavez Junior High, we have Jimmy Bates teaching math. We have Sarah Munoz teaching language arts. We have Priscilla Stevenson in the art program and Oliver Fernandez in the social studies program.
May Hensley Junior High School, a total of 7. I'll start with the first 4. We have Brent Bassard, Kendall Heller, Alexia Garcia, and Melinda Lamelli.
At May Hensley Junior High, we have 3 new employees, Anna Mumford, teaching science, Gabriela Vasquez, computer science, and Macy Fusi, English language arts.
For Central Valley, I'll start with our first 4. Alex Caldron, math, Mustafa El-Bayedi, math, Amanda Munchin, English, and Bradley Bassard, physical education.
Continuing on with Central Valley, we have Susanna Candile, an assistant principal, Jose Vega, assistant principal, Pomeline Perez, an English teacher, and Carissa Mendoza, an English teacher.
Continuing in Central Valley High School, Stephanie Betancourt, English, Donald Dubney, physical education, Courtney Dayhoff, agriculture, Kayla Himmis, history.
And the final slide for Central Valley High School, Elio Lepez, student support specialist, Christina Rocha, Portuguese teacher, Terry Santos, special education, and Colton Cornfoot, special education.
Ceres High School, we have 6 new employees, and I'll start with the first 4. Alexis Nunez Madruga, learning director, Paul Smith, physical education, Megan Bowen, English, Adriana Barreto de Fuertes, Portuguese.
And I'll finish up with Ceres High. Eric Akers looks like he really likes his microscope there. And Sarah Montez, special education.
Whitmore Charter Schools, 5 new employees. Kenneth Sanders II, social studies. Ashlyn Walker, math. Monica Woods, 4th grade.
Also at Whitmore Charter, Lindsay Green, an instructional para 2, and Dolly Anderson, a student support specialist.
Fiscal service, our new employee is Carrie Williams, CFO and director.
In the Child Nutrition Services Department, we have Andrew Munoz, a new food service worker 2.
For our maintenance department, we have Blaine Bradley, maintenance specialist, electrician.
In our very own personnel services, we have Molly Mestis, a personnel technician.
For child welfare and attendance, Jose Madrigal, administrative assistant.
In Project Yes, we have Cynthia Mejia, a youth advisor.
For our preschool department, we have Chanda Kaur at PKB and Brittany Filippo at Don Pedro.
In our special education department, we have Jessica Rojas, a speech and language pathologist, and Patricia Schrock, also a speech and language pathologist.
Our student service department, we have Angel Garcia, a PE professional, Jamie Moe, PE professional, Tong Tang Mao, also a PE professional, and then Jerry Rothstein, school nurse.
Okay, so let's give a big applause, make a lot of noise. Yay.
Welcome to series.
Congratulations to all of our new employees, and I know, Board of Trustees, that you have access to the slide deck if you wanted to connect names with faces, and we appreciate your patience with us as we attempted this tonight.
Is there a time they're gonna take their picture like we annually do somewhere at some time? That'd be great if we could. We have like the wall of.
We do.
Yeah.
We have amazing pictures. We've got like 8 or 10 years of those pictures.
We're gonna have to try it.
We'll have to do that when we are allowed to get together in a large group
groups.
again. It might not be until spring before we could do something like that. We might have to have a picture where we're wearing masks. And
We'll hold that thought and try to get it done. Hopefully.
it'll be forever a keepsake, right? Yes, yes, absolutely. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So moving to item 6, which is the approval of the agenda. It's an opportunity for board administration to adjust the published agenda. Any questions or any adjustments?
No adjustments.
Make a motion to approve agenda as presented.
Second. Have a motion by trustee Perez, second by trustee Molina. Marilyn, please poll the board.
Virginia Moore,
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa,
Aye.
Brian De La Porte,
Aye.
Hugo Molina,
Aye.
Fay Lane,
Aye.
Lourdes Perez,
Aye.
Sally White,
Aye.
Betty Davis,
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. So we're going to move to item 7, which is the hearing section. We're going to open a public hearing on the California School Employees Association Sunshine Proposal. Are there any comments or? Hearing none. The hearing is closed. Moving on to B, which is the public hearing on Series Unified Teachers Association Sunshine Proposal. I'm going to open the public hearing. Hearing no questions, the hearing is closed. Thank you. Okay, moving to number 8, which is report out of closed session. Trustee Davis, is there anything to report out of closed session?
No action to report.
Great, thank you, Betty. So going to number 9, which is the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented. I second.
I have a motion by trustee Perez, second by trustee White. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore,
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa,
Aye.
Brian De La Porte,
Aye.
Hugo Molina,
Aye.
Fay Lane,
Aye.
Lourdes Perez,
Aye.
Sally White,
Aye.
Betty Davis,
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. Going to the action section, item A, it's a 2-year experience waiver for preliminary administrative credentials. Dr. Denise Wickham, please.
Okay, so we have several administrators that have joined our team, and technically they're supposed to have 5 years of administrative experience before they can enter into the admin induction program in order to clear their credential. We can count their current years of experience towards that by applying for a waiver. The waiver has always been available through the state of California. Most of these current learning directors do currently have 4 years, but by us applying for a waiver for them, they can enter into the administrative induction program this year, which they had requested to do. So we are requesting to submit a waiver to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to approve these individuals to count their years of experience and be able to enter into the administrative induction program.
Great, does anyone have any questions of Dr. Wickham?
With the waiver, are they going to get it later, or the waiver is to completely waive that requirement?
It will waive that requirement because the minimum is 3 years, and the CTC wants you to have 5 years, but after you've you've done 3, you can apply for a waiver, which basically waives those 2 extra years.
Okay,
So it also gives these individuals access to the preliminary administrative credential, which means they are now qualified to evaluate certificated teachers. Without that administrative credential, they cannot evaluate teachers.
okay.
It also means once they have their administrative credential, they could apply for assistant principal positions.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? I don't need a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the 2-year fees waiver for preliminary administrative credentials.
I have a motion by trustee Molina, second by trustee Delaporte. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Aileen.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Valley White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving to B, establishing short-term employment resolution. Dr. Wickham, please.
Okay, I'm going to refer this to Dr. Viss.
Hi, good evening. In preparation for possible students coming back on campus, we would like to make an action item to hire 22 short-term custodians. So they would work no more than 75% of the year, and their purpose would be to help with cleaning restrooms, door handles, and really sanitizing, things that really above and beyond what our current custodians are doing at the sites.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 8-2021, establishing short-term employment. I second.
So before we move on the short term, does that mean once the COVID maybe ends, their employment would end? Since if that wasn't required any longer?
Yeah, so a short-term employee would be considered an at-will employment. So if anytime it is lifted, yeah, then we would be able to end that. But we are looking at, no matter what, just with students on, we're seeing that the cleanliness is definitely needed.
Right. Very important. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I have a motion by trustee Perez, second by trustee White. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Aileen.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Valley White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welch.
Aye, motion carries. And to C, classified staff layoff resolution. Dr. Wickham, please.
I'll be taking that one as well.
I didn't, I thought you probably were, but.
Sam Vaughn Elementary School currently has a vacant community liaison position. That current position was at 6 hours. In looking at the needs at the school site as well as budgetary needs, they would like to lay off 2.5 hours of that current vacant position and repost that position as a 3.5 hour community liaison.
That's 3.5 hour per day or per week?
3.5 hour per day.
Per day.
Yeah.
How long did they reduce, how many hours did they reduce it from?
So we're laying off 2.5 hours. And again, this is a vacant position. The current employee in that position actually received a promotion within the district. So this is a vacant position. Sam Vaughn, again, looking at the needs at their current site as well as their budgetary needs, they would like to lay off 2.5 hours of that current.
And this wouldn't impact their families at San Juan. They would still receive the same services. It would just be a different structure.
Absolutely, and that was taken into consideration. So that's where the 3.5 has come from. Many of our other school sites share community liaison, so several of them have about 3.5 hours of a community liaison, 3.5 to 4. Few of our sites still have a 6 to 7 hour.
Now, being that this is a layoff, right? Sounds like a temporary thing. So if we hire someone at 3.5, and times get better and stuff, they would be going back to the 6 hours.
No, so the site can always revisit that if the position becomes vacant. But currently, right now, since the position's vacant, we have all of our current community liaisons in their positions. In order for us to repost it with less hours, we would need an action to approve that.
What you're asking though is if the site changes mind later on and wants to take it back up to 6.
Right.
that can happen.
Okay, and so how many do we have right now at that site? None? Just one?
Well, there's nobody there now. It's empty.
Also, this is the one person that we would need in that site. So if we had two, we don't really need this one to be posted at all.
No.
Okay.
There's only one on each side.
Okay.
Does every site have a community liaison?
No, not every site.
This is site-based funding. They decide what they do with it. So some sites want that position, some sites do other things with it.
How many don't have it? Because that'd be a good one. Are there, is
I
it
think
like
most of
50-50?
the elementaries have the
Many of the
positions,
elementary-
and they have removed the position or not hired through attrition. In other words, when they've left as a community liaison, they don't rehire.
So again, several elementary sites do split a 7 hours, so they'll have 3.5 at each site. We don't, all of our current community liaisons have positions, so there wouldn't be a need for another split. And since this was vacant, Sam Vaughn would like to take the opportunity then to post as a 3.5 hour position.
So Sam Vaughn wants their own rather than sharing with another site.
Sam Vaughn has their own, and would like to hire a 3.5 hour for just their site specific.
And this is an open to the public position.
Yeah, this will be, upon approval, it'll be posted on EdJoin for applicants to apply.
Okay.
And they really didn't need anybody for 6 hours.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any further questions of Dr. Viss? I don't need a motion, please.
Approve the layoff resolution number 12-20/21 as attached.
Motion by trustee Molina, second by trustee Delaporte. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore. Aye. Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Fay Lane.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis. Aye. Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. Next is item D, request, or RFQ for Carol Fowler. Dan Pangrazio, please.
Good evening. So this is the request for qualifications for the next Carol Fowler modernization phase. If the price comes in acceptable on this project, we can fund it through the remaining Measure U bond dollars. So this would be phase 2. It's a 4-classroom addition that would be a standalone building adjacent to the new wing that we recently. It's in the same spot where the building was that was removed. And the timing of this could potentially be an early April start of the project. And as I said, would just be the second phase of a multiple phase modernization of Carol Fowler Elementary over. So we would recommend authorizing the request for qualifications.
I have a question. So the original site, the original 2 buildings, classrooms at Carol Fowler, are those going to be demolished someday and redone or rebuilt? Or are they good for a long time? They're just going to make.
We're going to be modernizing.
Taking the portables out and.
Correct. So for this project, and it could be a couple of years down the road, we would be replacing portables on to the left of the cafeteria and the kitchen when you look at the school. So there's a line of portables, the 30s right there. 4 of those would be removed afterwards, because you don't have to remove those until you've completed the project that we're doing now. It actually has to go through a process before you have to remove those later on. But we would be modernizing the building that you're talking about.
Those are designed to last a century or more.
Yeah, because they seem pretty sound and they could probably be remodeled or.
Yeah.
Correct.
So.
They've already been modernized once and they'll.
Yep.
At least once, possibly twice.
My alma mater, so.
Yeah.
This one is where my classrooms were.
Plan and hope to do that in the future.
Yeah, good. So.
Any motion?
Any other questions of Dan about this?
I
move to authorize staff to post a request for qualifications to accept submissions from pre-qualified builders to construct a 4-classroom addition at Carol Fowler Elementary, Phase 2.
I'll second.
A motion by trustee White, second by trustee Perez. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Fay Lane.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. Moving to E, reopening of school plan or in-person instruction.
And as a reminder, sorry to interrupt, as a reminder, there's 4 public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So attached to this item is a resolution on safely reopening schools per state and local guidelines. And also attached is a current draft of our working reopening plan, written for all stakeholders as a public document and guide. The resolution asserts a few important things. First, that we have a working reopening plan. That it includes a commitment to health and safety per the public health directives, that the district may close classes, grade levels, schools if necessary per the state guidelines as circumstances dictate, and that changes may occur to reopening timelines, plans, really any of the elements as conditions and circumstances change over time, and that if necessary and only if absolutely necessary, the district may apply for a K-6 waiver, so the option is open to apply for that under such waiver. Dr. Siegel, did you want to comment on the district's position on the applying for a waiver?
So on a waiver, we've been very reluctant to fill one out. Right now, there's not the need to fill one out because the county is transitioning to red, assuming numbers continue to trend down and don't go back up. The county will be in the red by November 2nd when we're currently targeting to reopen. The risk is that you could have one bad week, so your red numbers are red, instead of being purple, red, purple, red. In that situation, I would feel comfortable reopening even though we will not have met the requirements to reopen without a waiver, because that 1 week bumped up would reset the clock. So I think it's important that we put a waiver, get a waiver ready to have it ready to go in case we need to use it under those circumstances. I'm not suggesting that we use it in the circumstances where we're red, purple, dark purple, super dark purple. That's not the idea. If we're trending up, we need to stop and not reopen. One question that's come up is, and this has been answered by the public health director to the superintendents, what happens if we reopen either under a waiver or because we went red and we have schools in session? Once we're reopened, going back to purple does not close the schools. What closes schools at that point is individual results involving infection rates. So if there's a class that needs to be shut because of an outbreak in that class, then that class will be shut. If there's a certain proportion of the classes, and I don't offhand remember where that proportion is, on a campus that have to be closed, then the site automatically closes for the 14-day period until it can reopen. If the site closes and other sites close, when we reach a certain proportion of sites in the district that are closed, then the district closes as a whole. So those triggers are in automatically, and the state takes us off of the purple, red, orange, yellow nonsense. It's not nonsense, but yellow system, and puts us on this, based on your experience with infection rates on your school campuses, determines your ability to stay open. When you can't stay open in either class, school, or district, you can temporarily revert back to distance learning and then revert back to in-person instruction under your hybrid model once you've had a quarantine period. So once we reopen, we don't have to close again. The only circumstances that would lead us to close the whole district back again would be if the whole state went back to a lockdown, which I also don't anticipate. California is actually one of the leading states in the country right now. It's in the top, I'd say, fifth of 20% of states in terms of infection rates currently. Things have improved dramatically. Californians have been very serious about wearing masks and being safe, and that's showing. The middle part of the country is having an extreme outbreak right now, and probably because they rushed back to school too soon. and other things like that. And they're not wearing masks as much. So certainly we're concerned about what could happen during the winter when weather cools. We're monitoring that very closely. But if things continue, the question may not be whether we're red or not on November 2nd. The question may be, are we orange? Because the numbers last Tuesday not only will qualify us to go to red next week if they maintain, but we're starting to close in on the orange level in Stanislaus County. So there's been dramatic improvement in our county as well. So that's what the thinking of the waiver is just as a safety net in case we do a little dance along the line. Other districts are reopening. We feel we can reopen safely because of a countywide bump, and then it has to go back down. Again, if it goes up and continues to go up, then the waiver doesn't go in. Or the waiver goes in, but we don't use it until things are where they need to be. Just because you submit a waiver, it says you'll open no sooner than November 2nd, doesn't mean you won't reopen on November 2nd. You reopen when you want to reopen. But that would be part of it.
So if we do reopen, then it's fair to assume that we're going to notify the public so they can prepare if they have, if they can go back to work or wherever they.
Absolutely. That's part of what's going to happen in the coming days and weeks.
Trying to do the instruction.
Dr. Siegel, can you speak to the impact on families who select to file a waiver and have their students stay on distance learning?
Right, so families who stay on distance learning, potentially, we have only a certain amount of teachers in the district. We can't hire tons and tons more. We're going to have to hire some more to service those students. But if we have other kids come in, we need to put them somewhere. We don't want to have to. We've already opened classrooms for the distance learning kids, the ones who are going to custom classroom, which is a distance learning program. If we have kids come in, we've got to put them somewhere. We don't want to have to open additional classrooms because spots are being held for kids who already have a new teacher hired for them. So it's possible they could lose their spot. It's not guaranteed they'll lose their spot, but it's possible they could lose their spot at their home school. I do know that other districts, when they had parents make this decision, told them, if you're going on distance learning, you're going right now, even though the rest of the district is going distance learning already also. And when we come back, you're not coming back. So you need to make a decision. If you stay with your class, then you come back when we come back. If you go distance learning, you're out for the semester or the year until the whole district comes back full time. So different districts have handled it differently. We chose not to initiate our custom classroom at the beginning of the year because we felt like if everyone's on distance learning, why make the parents make that decision right now? As it ends up, the conditions that parents were making a decision about in July when they made those initial decisions were different. We were going to have every kid back every day. Now we're having half the kids back. That may cause some parents to rethink, do I really need my kid on distance learning? It may be a lot safer than what the district was going to be in to begin with. Or they may decide, I've learned a lot more and I want my kid out. We will allow parents who contact us and say, I really don't want my kid going to school, to opt their kid back out. They've been contacting all the parents who initially asked to be out, confirming that they want to stay out. A number of them, I think, have changed their mind and want to come back in now because having had their kids home, I think they're done.
What's the percentage of families requesting waivers?
Very small. It's not really a waiver, it's a custom classroom is what we're calling it. It's a very small percentage. When you have 100 kids now?
Yeah, I don't think it's much.
Yeah, so out of close to 7,000 elementary students.
Wow, that's
Now, we're not going back out and do the blanket advertising. Anybody who wants to sign up for this, sign up for it. Again, because we've hired teachers for these kids. We're going to have to hire additional teachers, and that's an expense that we can not afford very easily, but we will afford it. But if parents contact school sites and say, I want my kid out, then they'll be given that opportunity. Our assumption is if they wanted it, they would have asked in the summer.
And are you putting cohorts of students from that 100 or however many together by grade level?
To the extent they can,
Okay.
there'll be probably a K1 type thing. Is that correct, Jay?
We're going to have
Combo classes, but they're not really classrooms.
Right.
This has become independent study almost.
Okay.
There's a
68.
It'll be from all over the district.
And parents are clear that that is the instruction type that they will be receiving, their students?
Yes, it's a distance learning instruction.
Okay.
That's what they're signing up for. A number of parents who had selected that initially dropped it when they were contacted again.
Down to 68.
Okay.
And 68, that's 10%. I'm sorry, that's off a whole entire factor power 10. That's 1%. I think most parents are done with their kids being home. Those of you who are parents know what I'm talking about.
Can you hear me? Okay. If I may ask, are students going to be administered a COVID test through the district before they go back to school, or every 2 weeks?
No, there's, with 7,000 elementary students, they won't be. So if they're sick, their parents are supposed to keep them home. They can take them for COVID testing. Now, if we have a student who comes to school, doesn't know they're sick, shows symptoms, exposes other kids, we have the rapid testing. We may pay for that in order to determine, do we need to shut the classroom down or not. But we're not going to screen test. There is screening testing for, it's actually called surveillance testing, where you just test everybody over randomly at times. For teachers, initially that was going to be every 2 months. Every teacher would get, and every employee actually in the district would get tested. That is under review right now at the state. We've heard that they're thinking about eliminating that requirement. We've heard that they're thinking about taking it every month. So we have no idea right now what the testing requirement is going to be. We're geared up and are entering into a contract with Quest Diagnostic to test for teachers and classified staff and administrators to have a self-testing kit where they self-swab and return it. We mail it back in and Quest gets the results.
So if the kids go on campus, do they have to have their temperature taken?
We had staff members and classroom teachers have thermometers and have the ability to make the choice to check their temperature at any time.
Oh. But it's not mandatory daily, or?
No.
We've looked into that. There's some logistical issues, I think is that where we landed with that?
Exactly, yeah.
Mr. Pangracio, you'll be speaking to the safety plan.
Yeah, I was just going to add some comments about that right now. But were there any other questions on that topic? So the reopening plan itself, as you look at it, it really is a communication of largely the safety guidelines. The vast majority of that reopening plan is just an articulation of the required safety guidelines, not our interpretation of them or what Series Unified is deciding to do. It's what we have through California Department of Public Health. And so it's communicating that in our plan. And then there's also a brief visual chart of the hybrid instructional model that we're working towards. But I think it's really important to note that the resolution before you now and the reopening plan is something that is asked for in the Senate bill. But throughout this whole process, their circumstances and conditions have changed. So what you publish tonight could be different tomorrow. And so that's why when you look at the language in the resolution, it's general in nature. It's communicating that we would be authorizing reopening if all the circumstances were correct and we're following the guidelines, etc. And the reopening plan itself is an articulation of where we are today in our process of planning for reopening in a hybrid model. And then also, of course, following the safety guidelines that are coming through public health. And then really we proceed from tonight, and we react to any changing circumstances with which every district will need to do as we go forth in the days and weeks to come.
So when the hybrid model comes into play, at what point will it go back to normal? The guidelines have to say we're clear and there's a...
When the transmission rates in the state are down very, very low, probably after a vaccine starts to be administered and administered out to the public, including schools, children. At some point, there's going to be a time, presumably late this spring, where we feel like this thing is under control and we can have kids back. I don't know whether that will be with masks, but where having 30 kids in a classroom is not considered dangerous. It's possible that will not happen this year.
So if a vaccine comes available and the president says everyone will take the vaccine, is that a requirement for a kid to get back in the school?
That wouldn't be a presidential decision. It would be a gubernatorial and legislative decision in California, state by state. So it's possible.
I think he was going to offer it to everyone.
To offer it to everybody, but the state legislature would come and say, you know what, with the vaccine available, the way it's being made available by May 1st, all students have to be inoculated in order to attend school. It's possible they'll do something like that. I don't know for sure.
But who makes that decision?
State legislature. Or the governor under an emergency order. I don't know if I would anticipate that, but it depends on how readily available the vaccine and how quickly it is. If the vaccine is approved for distribution in January. The first wave of the vaccine is going to go to emergency workers and hospital workers.
Right.
The next wave is probably going to go to people with underlying health conditions and elderly. And then you'll probably start seeing things like, let's get all the school children inoculated, workers and essential workers in food industries and other places where social distancing is difficult. There'll be a rollout for the vaccine. I would anticipate, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm anticipating sometime in March or April, we'll start to see students becoming inoculated. That's maybe optimistic, maybe pessimistic, I don't know. I just don't
And to
know.
get our secondary kids back on any kind of at school, it's gonna require probably similar data to be there.
Secondary is really tricky right now, so the public health officer has told us that if you can cohort your kids, in other words, they stay with each other the whole day, then you can reopen. So we're looking like at Patricia K. Beaver, where they have 4 7th, 8th grade classes that already, their schedule already is done that way. So the kids go through the schedule together, no mixing. That then becomes possible to reopen that school when we're in the red. We're looking at a special thing for Argus and Endeavor. Mrs. Stubbs is working with her staff. They had a plan that a staff member came up with that we saw today that looked very promising to us. I appreciate the creativity of that staff member. That we keep the kids in a classroom together. They would not switch classes. It's more of just a place for them to go do their work because they're struggling right now. Those kind of situations will work. Where you're switching period to period to period, we can't do that right
So
now.
the teachers would rotate from classroom to classroom then, or how are you gonna get an English teacher?
In August, they would do distance learning, and we don't know if this model is going to go through or not. We're just exploring it right now. The model would be that the kids do distance learning from a classroom. August is a whole different situation. We really need those kids to come to school because they're not doing any work at home. A little different situation. So right now, we're focusing on elementary for the most part. Secondary, we know the earliest we could even begin to think about it would be the start of the second semester. And I hate to say this, I know that our student board reps are not going to hear this. We don't know that that's even going to be possible. We have to wait and see what happens with the public health officer and her orders, and also what happens with cases. I imagine if we get into the orange or yellow, there will start to be conversations about, is it time to open secondary schools?
Are we providing transportation for our elementaries? Okay.
Yes. So the bus routes will run as
With
they
limited number of-
normally would with less students because only essentially half are there. And so then they'll be following all the guidelines. They'll be spread out. They'll be able to use the hand sanitizer, sitting with siblings, and then encouraged to wear their mask. And then of course when they get to school, then you start then the school day kind of plan, which we're working on. I mean, we're not getting into all that depth tonight, but we're working every single day with the elementary principals and then through all the employees and the sites to make sure that all of the guidelines are followed and that we're implementing everything that we need to do to keep students and staff safe. And so all the PPE, all the procedural pieces down to how does the morning work, how does the cafeteria work, how do we space at dismissal, what does rainy day look like? I mean, just know that we were talking about all those things in the summer when we were planning on completely reopening. So it's been months where we've been planning on the actual logistics. You're just not seeing all those details, nor would you see that level of detail in the general plan at this point.
Right.
We're working on that's what we're working on every single day, and I'm obviously highly involved as really the point person for that. And of course, Mr. Simmons is very involved in that as well. And we're going to be there kind of shoulder to shoulder with our elementary schools to provide support and to help them make difficult decisions as they arise and be there for them.
I just want to publicly commend you. I know it takes tremendous organization and coordination between departments with school sites and everything. So I have said it to you personally, but I want to publicly commend every department within the school district that's making this happen. So thank you.
You're welcome, of course, and we've basically all got to do this together in the spirit of collaboration. No matter what your role is in the district, that's the way we've always done things, and that's the way we have to approach this to be safe and to be able to educate our students the way that we need to move forward.
One of the concerns that was raised in the public comments was involvement of parents. I want to assure you that parent groups have been involved. We haven't involved every parent because that would be short of sending a survey out and then ignoring the results because pretty limited what we are going to be able to do. It's really difficult to involve every parent. So we've involved representative groups of parents to get feedback that we feel is representative of what parents feel is going on.
And I think perhaps in terms of coming from a parent perspective might be the communication and having letters sent home in terms of where we're at, what are, the plans for involvement and those types of communication so that I as a parent know that there is something occurring and that the district is working with the community in terms of bringing a safe plan for reopening schools.
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And there is a feeling like obviously if we're opening up on the 2nd and that works out, that we need to be ramping up and the communication needs to be excellent. And so really tonight and presenting this resolution and this plan is really that next really important step to know we can move forward and we have your authorization to do that. And then really as of tomorrow and going forward, there's going to be a huge push through communications with staff, with site leaders, community, all stakeholders, exactly as you're describing.
I agree.
Very
Communication is very important.
Absolutely.
And you're going to see an uptick of that, sharp uptick in that, because we're getting closer now to where.
Yeah, because then, people will get hope, and then hope, makes people happy sometimes.
Well, there's an article today in the Courier talking about reopening.
What's that?
There was an article today in the Courier talking about reopening.
Was there? Okay.
Maybe not everyone's reading the Courier right now.
I haven't recently, no. All right.
So yeah, at this point, we recommend approval of the resolution and the district's reopening plan.
Further questions, Dan, this item? I don't need a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 11-20/21 to reopen schools and approve the district's reopening plan as presented.
Second.
Motion by trustee Perez, second by trustee Delaporte. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Elaine.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Your mic is.
Oh.
Activated.
Here you go. Thank you. Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. So we'll move to item F, which is the final guaranteed maximum price for the small gym. Dan Ingrazio, please.
Thank you. So this is the GMP resolution for the Ceres High School Small Gym Girls Locker Room Project. This will be funded through Measure U bond dollars. And Acme Construction recently presented the price and their selection of subcontractors, as well as the cost breakdown and the financing terms. And the financing terms costs are broken down for you in the attachments. And all is acceptable to us and within the scope and budget for the project. If you approve the GMP, we plan to start in 4 to 6 weeks, which would be great because we can get in there and start working on a very complicated and large modernization project. And without, unfortunately, students aren't there on campus. But in this instance, we can move fast, especially work on those locker rooms as quickly as we can, so that they will be functional and up and ready and modernized. So we would jump right in and start working on that project. And then I do want to point out that you may have seen $723,000 in allowances on this project, and that's in addition to the $262,000 contingency for the unknown and discovered cost as the projects go on. But the allowances, they're broken down in the table, and the largest cost is doing new windows throughout the whole building. Much of that building is going to be modernized, and almost every piece is going to be touched. But we did not have windows in the original plans, but we believe now we can do them. And so that piece of it, and then some other elements are in the allowances. What that means is we could decide not to do them, and then that would come out of the cost of the project. Okay, but we do plan on doing those, and so they're there in the allowances. And then we're just excited to modernize this building. I do want to highlight, as I said, I mean, some of the things, brand new roof, almost every piece of it's going to be touched, but brand new roof, brand new gym floors, the locker rooms completely redone, new AV and theater components for the theater aspect as well, and so that's going to be really nice when it's completed. Elevator for ADA compliance and all the ADA pieces, and so it's going to be really nice in the finished product. So
I have a question. Is there asbestos it's an old building, is there anything like that in there that
yeah,
be identified? Or?
I'm sure that there's going to be asbestos.
I remember hazardous waste being one of the items. Hazardous materials was one of the items.
Yeah, they're going to be abating the areas as they go along. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I know I'm not sure what year that was built, but it's an old building.
Yes, like the 1920s or something.
Mid 1920s. Yeah, so we recommend approving the GMP as stated.
I move this motion.
Second.
All right, Betty, I was wondering where you've been. Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Davis, second by Trustee Molina. Alan, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian Davenport.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Kay Lane.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. Moving to item G, which is distance learning grading resolution. Dr. Amy Peterman.
Wear my mask and glasses at the same time. COVID problems, right? Good evening, Board of Trustees. At our last board meeting, I shared with you some information about a design team that has been meeting to develop a distance learning grading policy for CUSD. One of the design team members, Ken Moncrief, is on our Zoom call this evening, and he's going to start out by talking to you a little bit about his experience. So Ken, you ready to roll?
I am. Oh, that's good. Okay, so I'd like to start this evening by thanking all of you for being a minute to present this to you. I've been involved in the process since the very beginning, and many of the people that have been involved have put in a great number of hours trying to go through and prepare a plan that works for both students and teachers. Jody and I have been a part of the solution process from the very beginning. We are here continuing to support this resolution, and we are committed to making effort to try to get our membership to support resolution. We acknowledge this grading change is going to be a confrontational, but we are to go through and recommend changes to our membership. So I also want to be transparent in that the fact that if I have teachers that come to me as objecting to this grade change, we will have to work the process through the PTA. But I hope that it's necessary. We haven't had to call PTA at all. I do feel that there are going to be teachers that are going to have problems with this process. So once again, thank you this evening for allowing me to address this. I'm really proud to have been part of this process and looking forward to get it presented in the future.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you giving that perspective and your experience throughout this process. It's been much appreciated to have all of the teachers and others that have been a part of the design team since the beginning, since late August. I also wanted to, Ken's comments about just trying to bring staff on board and teachers on board. We Mr. Rudeshauser, who is the Director of Secondary Education, and myself have started visiting leadership teams at the different secondary schools to start with over the last few days, just to open up the conversation and make sure that we're there to answer questions specifically about teachers' rights versus the district grading scale. So I think that's really what we're trying to continue to share with our teachers, is that at the end of the day, regardless of the board policy, they have the right to administer the student's grade. What we have for you tonight in the resolution is the actual grading policy, which includes the grading scales that are available for the teachers to use. That's really what is part of the action tonight. You want to jump in there?
I do.
Dr.
So I
Siegel?
want to emphasize a couple of things here with that. The teacher, under this policy, the teacher will have complete control over what grade is inputted into the system because they grade student work. They have control of the grade, the letter grade that's inputted. If they don't like that it's on a 4-point scale or a 5-point scale, it looks like a 50 to 100, but it's essentially a 5-point scale. And at the end of the day, when the grade pops out at the end of the semester or the end of the quarter, end of the trimester, whatever grading period it is, and they do not believe that the grade that the system calculated reflects where the student is, they have the right and the ability, and as they currently do in the system, to change that grade either up or down. They just have to be able to justify that decision to a parent or a student who is asking, why is my grade not different than what I thought it was going to be? In other words, if a student, the system says the student has a D, but the teacher is like, no, you didn't do enough work and I think you have an F, this teacher has the right to administer, record that grade as an F. They just have to be able to explain it. Likewise, if the student receives a C, but the teacher feels the student was really doing B work, and it's just the grading system is not accurately reflecting where the student is, they can change the grade up from a C to a B. They've always had that ability, they will continue to have that ability. Because of that, I believe that this policy will pass any legal muster because the teacher administers the grade, determines the grade. That's all still in the teacher's hands. The current policy has its grading scale on it, and this is simply changing that grading scale to a different grading scale or an option of several different grading scales.
Your design team had representation of all levels, elementary and...
Yes, and actually I wanted to address the process specifically because I believe you received a public comment tonight from one of the teachers in our district, and that comment called into question, I think, the inclusivity and collaborative nature of this process. So I just wanted to assure you that it was a very collaborative process. We had 18 members on the design team. 13 of those members are teachers. So 2 of those teachers are instructional coaches, 1 is an intervention teacher, the other 10 are current classroom teachers. So the comments in the public comment tonight is not accurate, and I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of that.
In addition, you had the president and the chief negotiator of the association on the team.
And the former CUTA president as well. So it was a very inclusive process. In addition to the design team that was made up of the 18 members, we also consulted 2 other teacher committees that resulted in approximately 50 additional teachers being given the opportunity to give feedback on the proposed changes. I've also had a number of email exchanges and one-on-one conversations with teachers that have reached out and said, hey, here's what I'm doing. Can we talk through what you're asking me to change? And we've talked through various scenarios and, come to a really good understanding of what this resolution is proposing. So I think it's been extremely collaborative. It's been a long, time-consuming process over the last 6 weeks, but incredibly beneficial. And I think Ken and Jody both can attest to the open conversation that's happened in our design team meetings. It's been very, very positive, and I'm looking forward to the impact that this resolution can have. So Dr. Siegel talked a little bit about the scale. I just want to revisit briefly what is in the resolution. So the resolution temporarily replaces the 0 to 100 grading scale that makes it nearly impossible for students to recover from zeros or very low grades on assignments. Teachers, with the resolution passing, teachers will be able to select from 3 different grading scales that are presented, and our ed tech specialists, who are on the call tonight for a different presentation, will be providing both live and recorded trainings for teachers who need support in making the change. The change in grading scale needs to happen at the start of the next grading period, which varies depending upon what type of school site you're at. So for example, we have junior highs, their quarter ends Friday, the next grading period starts on Monday. Our trainings are starting next week. So they will be available immediately. On the other hand, our high schools are on semester system, so teachers aren't required to start until January. We're really hoping they choose to start early.
We're encouraging them to start as soon as they can, and we'll provide help if they need to change their grading systems around. It's not necessarily a simple process in some cases.
Right. So we are providing that training. Teachers are being compensated for attending the training because we feel that that's important. We want to honor their time as well. So and a lot of the conversation was really about how to support teachers with this transition. So we're very, very committed to making sure that we do that.
I want to clarify something. It is a very simple transition at the beginning of a grading period. It's the fact that we're in the middle of one that complicates it. So that's why we're not mandating it right now. This time.
So any other questions?
I think I made a comment last time, but I really appreciate the teacher involvement in this process and to get the voice in this determination, and really appreciate their feedback and input in terms of coming up with something that's going to be feasible and effective for us.
I echo that appreciation. Yeah, we could not have done it and created something that will work without teachers at the table.
So moved.
Thank you.
What was that, Betty?
It's so moved.
So moved.
So, there you go.
I second.
A motion by trustee Davis. She's on a roll, by the way. And we have a second by trustee White. Alan, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Kay Lane.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, going to item H is 2020 refunding certificates of participation, refunding of additional maturity, September 1, 2020. Dan Pangrazio.
Thank you. So CUSD recently successfully sold COPs, and the board originally approved refunding maturities that were maturing on December 1st, 2021. But market conditions actually allowed us to refund a maturity that is maturing on December 1st, 2020. So this added to the overall savings. It was definitely a positive outcome. And so we recommend that you ratify this additional refunding this evening.
It's kind of a cleanup to make sure that learners dotting the i's and crossing the t's, that the original documentation did not reference that, but that time.
Looks like the right thing to do, that's for sure. Any questions? Motion, please.
I move to ratify the refunding of the December 1st, 2020.
Motion by trustee Delaporte, second by trustee Lane. Marilyn, please pull the board.
Virginia Moore.
Aye.
Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Aye.
Brian De La Porte.
Aye.
Hugo Molina.
Aye.
Kay Lane.
Aye.
Lourdes Perez.
Aye.
Sally White.
Aye.
Betty Davis.
Aye.
Mike Welsh.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So moving to information and study. First, we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Siegel, please.
So I have a very brief report. You've had a lot of heavy topics tonight. I'm going to add one more. Just, I know you'll join me in having your thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the student who we lost this week. And it's always a very, very difficult thing. And we are dealing with that now and saddened by that loss.
Yes. right, moving to B, the board report. We're gonna start with Central Valley High School. Virginia Moore, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can I be heard on the microphone?
You need to put your mic on?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, and thank you, Marilyn, for the dinner. It was delicious. Not much has changed since I last reported on what was happening at Central Valley. Our homecoming is going to be happening in 2 weeks from this week. And I would like to thank the CTA and Mrs. Banalis for your donation of $500 to our homecoming charity. We appreciate it very, very much, and thank you, thank you. And something that occurred this week, actually yesterday, that was implemented at our school, is a change in the schedule that will affect 9th and 10th graders only. Instead of 9th and 10th graders going to their intervention on their own time and kind of leaving that option up to them, it is being mandated that they check in with every single period in their schedule. And this is because of the amount of failing grades that 9th and 10th graders are receiving. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Virginia. Next, we'll have Ceres High School, Victoria Rodriguez Ochoa.
Good evening, board. So, as many of you know, it's the peak of college season currently. So, what our college transition learning director has done this week is create a college awareness week. So, every single day of the week, there is college presentations. There is also information being given out to all students. The presentation was open to all grade levels, freshmen through seniors were able to go. We also are giving presentations on the alternate options. So we know not all students are wanting to go the college route. So we are also giving them presentations on workforce and military. So after school, there was presentations, and we actually got a good amount of students involved. We were also giving them out. They were entered in a raffle, so we were giving out crumble cookies and pizzas, I believe. And that was, well, that ends tomorrow. It was just this week. Also, another thing that came up this week, so we know many students are struggling with their grades, and we have seen a high number of low grades, more than we usually have and would like to see. So the principal has decided to give the students a makeup week, which will allow the students to catch up on all their work. Teachers are still allowed to teach new materials, but are not allowed to give assignments during this week. It, I believe, will be, October 19th through the 23rd, which is in 2 weeks. And I as a student really much appreciate this because I do need a break because things have been tough and a lot of assignments have been given out, and it's hard to separate home life from school since it is being clashed together right now. So I would like to shout out the principal and the teachers that were able to make this happen. I know a lot of them are advocating for the students and know that we are struggling and are making sure that our voices are heard and that we are being taken care of. So I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Any board members have any comments they'd like to make?
Just want to thank and congratulate the tech department. I think they're the ones who put up the video. Looks very nice, very professional. Thank you for your input, Dr. Steele and Dr. Ficken. I was very pleased with the outcome. You know, with the video, how it looks, and hopefully the spirit or meaning behind the video gets across, you know, to the entire staff. And I know that you're part of the staff also. And in being part of the video, you know, you're thinking of doing this for the other employees, but then you're also the part of the family, and I just want to make sure that you understand that that video was also meant for you too. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I hope everybody liked the snacks that we had. Went out to the schools and
The chips.
the chips, yeah, we were hoping everybody liked their snacks. That they got.
Oh, yeah. I heard many comments about it, about the snack basket.
It was
We enjoyed
something
ours.
small, but
I didn't get any.
I want to know what I have to do for crumbled cookies. That's
I know.
Put a collared shirt on, dress up.
Those are not good for you.
No, I know.
All right, so we'll move on to the association report. We have CSEA will be first this evening.
I don't know.
Is there anyone from? Mr. Viss.
I was just going to report on behalf of Vern. As you can know, he was on here earlier. He had to attend to a transportation situation with his son, so helping his son out right now. But he just wants to apologize that he couldn't be here. He continues to meet with the district, sometimes weekly, sometimes daily, just as things continue was going. But just wanted to say thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next we'll have CUTA, Jody. Is here. Jody, please.
Good evening. Is it really loud? It's going to me.
that's
good. You're good.
Perfect.
Okay. First of all, we just really did appreciate the snacks. I did hear comments from many members that appreciate that. Just to kind of comment on some things about the reopening plan, the district has been very transparent with Ken and I and discussions with everything that's been going on. I do want to make sure that you understand that all teachers are very eager to reopen. However, we want to do it when it is safe for our staff, our students, and our families that they go home to every day. With that said, there are many concerns from members about safety and the plan when we reopen. Nothing that I say tonight I have not voiced already to the group that we've worked with. A couple of things stand out in the plan as far as 3 feet distancing versus 6 feet distancing. We know that the 3 feet distancing is basically a county, I don't know if it's called something that they've agreed to be different than the state. And so we truly believe that at this point that we need to go with the 6 feet of social distancing. We also understand that the district will have the right to apply for a waiver. However, we really feel that that is not something we need to be looking at doing. The numbers are there for a reason, and when we can open safely without the waiver, we will be ready to do so. A couple of other suggestions that we feel would make staff feel more comfortable with reopening would be to mandate masks for all students, not just third through 6th grade. Children of TK through 2nd grade level wear masks in the grocery stores. There's no reason that they shouldn't be able to wear them attending school. It would keep them safe from each other and as well as keeping our staff safe. The other thing that we feel would be beneficial to be considered is a possible staggered start. Many districts are starting a couple grade levels at a time to make sure that things are in place before you add additional students. So those are kind of some of the main things that we've been looking at. As far as the reopening of Argus and Endeavor, I do know that there are some teachers that have been helping with that plan, but there also are many concerns at that site with the age of the students and the ability to keep them into small cohorts. So I just would strongly caution to make sure that the staff is on board before we decide to go ahead with reopening. I definitely do appreciate the input we've had and the I know that everybody's listening and wants our staff to be safe and wants our schools to reopen, and we do as well. We just want to make sure that it's safe for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody?
Betty is saying,
I didn't see what that was.
Betty
I
said,
couldn't see what that was.
I think she said, Jody, hard to understand.
We can, Betty, I can share with you those comments tomorrow if you want. Or Denise can. We're familiar with them, and they're all good things being taken into consideration.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. So we're going to move to D, Facility Improvement Plan Update. Mr. Pangrazio.
Sure, I'm going to step out for a minute. I'll be right back. You can keep going.
Thank you. So annually, we bring the master facility improvement plan before you, and so we revise it to update all of the projects that have been completed. They're in bold, and then you can look forward in the coming few years at planned projects and the level of priority status that we have on those projects. It's a living document. It can change any given day, but we want to have this one time a year where you're able to review it, ask any questions you may have, and then all the projects that are done get deleted and archived out of the document after tonight, and then we proceed forward. And then so all the other changes that occur over time and throughout the years and changing circumstances can change the priorities. They can change what projects are planned for whatever sites at any time. But for tonight, we just want to take any questions you might have and be able to respond to those regarding the plan.
All right, Dan, thank you. Move on to item E, which you have again, Dan, which is the Series Unified School District Foundation 2019-2020 Financial Audit Report.
Yes, so we bring this to you annually, and foundation finances, which they have been for some time, are in very good order. No material findings, so thanks to Julie Lynn Martin, as always, for taking the lead on this, and all is well. Foundation finances. Questions?
Do you have any questions, Dan? Thank you, Dan.
I'm gone for 2 minutes, and you're through 2 more items.
Move quick around here.
That's good.
Item F, Distance Learning Highlights. Dr. Amy Peterman.
Hi, I'm back, and I know we've been talking about reopening and some other things, but this item is a celebration of all of the really wonderful things that our teachers have been doing during distance learning. So you don't have to listen to me talk. I have some wonderful people here on Zoom that are going to do the talking for me tonight. So I just want to introduce them because they worked really hard to put this presentation together. So Ashley Grimm, who is our program specialist in Ed Services, is here. And our 3 amazing Ed Tech specialists. I cannot tell you how hard these 3 people have been working since I don't even know when, all summer long, all fall long. They're just working so hard. Brian Wise, Emily Bryan, and Mariana Sandoval. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to them. One of them is going to start talking and share with you, and I'm going to get out of the way.
Great.
I'm Ashley Grimm, and I am going to start us out. So together we've been working on preparing all the stakeholders to be successful with digital learning. We focused on the longevity of skills acquired and how they will impact the future of learning. Tonight we're excited to share celebrations throughout this journey with you.
We really kept the framework of learning in the forefront of our minds as we developed a flexible learning pathway for staff to acquire any necessary skills to communicate, teach, connect, and assess students during this time. We have held live webinars that generated over 400 participants and offered the recordings for staff to view at their leisure. We've also developed a parent guide to digital learning that was printed and delivered to each student at every school site. This guide continues to provide resources for families to help their child navigate through the digital world. Now let's take a glimpse into the life of a few teachers during distance learning and hear their challenges that they have overcome and stories of success.
One of my biggest successes was asking students for input on how the course was going. We were initially moving at a pace that wasn't sustainable for the students or my own mental health, and so talking to them, getting their input on what's working, what's not working, and maybe what I should start doing really allowed them to have a voice and help make distance learning more effective for them.
One success that we've had with distance learning, I think the biggest one is bringing families together to work with us. The collaboration between families and teachers has been amazing, so I've really enjoyed working with families and getting to know them and working with them to make sure their student is successful.
The one success I would say that I've had with distance learning would be using the CUSD program, just because I can keep in contact with students. I can watch their videos, I can track their progress, they can see videos and things like that, so just keeping that connection and building relationships that way.
So one success story I've had so far with distance learning is I'm still getting high participation rates from students. Students are engaged, they have their cameras on, and they're moving, and once we're done with the routine, I have students submit their dance video via Flipboard, and just to see what students are coming up with creatively, we focus on 4 different things: location, lighting, execution, and also they have a chance to choreograph their own section towards the end of the routine.
Some of the really big successes we've had with distance learning so far is using GoGuardian. It's become such a powerful tool in our classrooms, providing us a way to communicate with our kids through messages. Another great thing about it is being able to auto-open tabs. If kids sometimes that struggle to get to a site, you can auto-open it for them right there, which is awesome.
So a challenge that I encountered was how to conduct the calorimetry lab for chemistry. I ended up creating 2 videos and produced data for the students, and the students are still able to complete the assignment through watching my video. I also plan to send out an email with a list of materials that students can use from home. I'm trying to engage the parents as well, so labs can still be done from home using home materials, and we can still have the hands-on activities.
Another challenge of distance learning is how students show their demonstration of learning the material that we are giving them. In mathematics, it's very difficult for students to be able to show learning by using symbols and equations not readily available on the keyboard. So one of our success has been trying different digital tools and platforms. And recently as a math team, we have found the drawing tool on Pear Deck, which has been really, really beneficial. It allows us to give a problem to students, and then students can draw right on their Chromebook with their touchscreen or their stylus that they were given, and allow us to give feedback in real time.
We have curated some authentic knowledge artifacts to share with you. With Google Slides, students have been able to demonstrate mastery in math and ELA. Using the camera on their Chromebooks, students have captured their learning to share with others using tools like Flipgrid and Google Classroom. Teachers are exploring new tools like Jamboard that allow students to interact with text and media on a digital whiteboard, providing the opportunity for teachers to check for understanding. Kindergarten students are even explaining their thinking through video using Seesaw. Pear Deck provides students the opportunity to interact during synchronous or asynchronous instruction and allows teachers to provide feedback in real time.
We are going to return to school stronger than we have ever been. The technology skills that both teachers and students have learned throughout distance learning will accelerate future achievement. Students will be able to transfer this knowledge into their college and career pathways. Distance learning is a challenging task, but our teachers are taking risks with technology that positively impact student learning, and we are so pleased at the work that they have been able to complete. This experience will promote further refinement of clarity, learning intentions, and authentic assessment. And we leave you with this quote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for developing that. I can't say enough how pleased and proud I am when I see all of the things that our teachers are doing out there. They're getting really creative, and I wholeheartedly agree that when we come back and we are in person live with our students, we're going to be better educators as a system and in individual classrooms. So thank you. Thanks to everyone who put the presentation together too. Great job.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, we'll move on to item G, which is board policy, July 2020 policy revision, second reading.
It's 8:32, so this is where I take a binder out and read the policies to you.
Or not.
Take about an hour, maybe two. No, or not. This is all here for second reading. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And that's all.
You need to go home and read all that. That's the kind of guy you are. All right, looks like we're done, guys. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.